Shanghai lockdown nightmare. An elderly man declared dead until the body bag starts moving. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. Just when you thought the Shanghai COVID lockdown couldn't get any crazier, this happened. Workers at a Shanghai nursing home were about to take a dead body to a funeral home, only to discover that he's not so dead. Well, that's some real nightmare fuel, especially when considered that most people in China are cremated. There's another video of this that seems to be taken by people in an apartment across the street. Here's the "oh crap, what do we do now" moment. And then they wheel the not actually dead guy back into the nursing home, while he appears to be still zipped up in the body bag. Now, I saw this video over the weekend but didn't repost it at first because I wasn't sure if it was real. But it's been confirmed. The district government responded to the incident on Monday, saying in a statement the elderly man was now in a stable condition. I hope he has no idea what almost happened to him. But don't worry, because the important thing is that people are being punished for this. 3 officials have been removed from the district Civil Affairs Bureau and Social Development Office, and the head of the nursing home has also been removed. I don't know what the Social Development Office has to do with this, but sure. A doctor also had his license revoked and is under investigation. At least that makes more sense. But here's the best part of a terrible story. The funeral home reportedly praised its employees for noticing the person was still alive and rewarded them with 5,000 yuan, $750 each. Good job, funeral home employees, for noticing the dead guy was still moving. Here's a bonus. So there's been some mismanagement of the Shanghai lockdown, and people have been getting fed up. Some people have been banging pots and pans in protest. These were being posted on WeChat last week to encourage people to protest. To get around the censorship, they were disguised as messages about attending concerts. People are upset because they haven't been getting enough government resources. But the Shanghai authorities know how to solve that problem. Blame the protest on foreign forces. Yes, foreign forces are telling Chinese people to bang their pans together. How insidious. I'm not sure the Chinese regime is going to be able to blame every protest on foreign forces, though. Like this one that happened on the night of May 1st.
老百姓没有饭吃，他们太不公平了。都关了45天，然后好多人都没有饭吃，现在都出来要造反了。共产党这怎么管理的？这就是现在的上海既往。为什么会出现这种？这一搞不好就可能要发生暴动。
I think it's fair to say that things aren't going great in Shanghai right now. But Shanghai authorities are about to turn things around. I'll tell you how after the break. Welcome back. Great news for Shanghai. After a 4-day lockdown that lasted well over a month, Shanghai finally reached zero COVID over the weekend. And by zero COVID, I of course mean zero COVID cases outside quarantined areas. That's how the Chinese Communist Party is now defining zero COVID. Since they can't actually reach zero COVID, they're calling it zero COVID at the community level. You've got to hand it to the Communist Party. They are really good at changing definitions to make it sound like they've won. Imagine if you could do the same. Honey, I've reached 0 dirty dishes at the dining room level. They've all been moved into the kitchen to quarantine for 2 weeks. You're welcome. What zero COVID on a community level really means is anyone who tests positive will be immediately hauled away to a quarantine camp, even if they have to break down your door to do it.
Wonderful.
That was part of a viral video circulating on Chinese social media this week. Police broke down the door and took a woman away to a quarantine camp. She was resisting because she was waiting for the result of a second PCR test. The police told her they were allowed to take her away anyway and also threatened her for recording them.
你不要拿着手机，对吧？拍摄的视频掐头去尾。
我们要在那边全程抛到网上。
截取其中一段，要是发到网上造成后果的，你们要承担责任。
After she was put in the quarantine camp, she tested negative. We've shown you some of the tough conditions in the quarantine camps before, but Reuters recently interviewed a Shanghai resident named Kumi Wu, who was transferred to 3 different quarantine camps. In one particularly dirty facility, she had to reuse bedding that had already been used by people who had been moved out of the camp.
我问一个大叔，我说你的被子是从哪里来的？大叔跟我说，让我去其他房间里面找上一批已经被转运走了的人睡过的被子。他说你看一下哪些被子是比较干净的，只能这个样子，也没有办法，没有人管我们。
That sounds like a great way to keep spreading COVID. But hey, these people are already in quarantine, so it doesn't matter. But thanks to the quarantine, 6 districts in Shanghai officially reached zero COVID, which meant that people could finally go outside. Theoretically.
Despite the drop in infections, more fences were erected at some residential blocks in Shanghai on Monday. And footage filmed by Reuters also showed streets largely devoid of pedestrians and traffic.
Like many things in China, the reality on the ground is different depending on where you are. Some apartment complexes let people go outside their apartments, but they weren't allowed to leave the complex. Others gave people passes to go outside the complex, but only 1 person per household could go outside for 4 hours at a time every other day. And they made good use of that time. Here's footage of people lining up around the block for Sam's Club. Hold on. Doesn't Shanghai have a Costco? I thought they were supposed to be better than this. But enjoy Sam's Club while you can, everyone, because authorities reported 58 new cases outside quarantine again on Monday. Which means the lockdown isn't over yet. Hold on, I have a great idea on how to end the lockdown for good. Move everyone from Shanghai into quarantine camps, all 25 million of them, even if they're testing negative for COVID, because every negative case is a potential positive case. And the good news is once everyone in Shanghai is in a quarantine camp, then they can lift the lockdown. Everyone who's not in a camp can go outside again, and the Chinese Communist Party can declare victory. Okay, sure, that means no one is allowed to go outside since everyone is in quarantine, but the important part is the Communist Party wins. Obviously, that's a joke because it's too ridiculous for even the... What's that, Shelley? Chinese authorities are sending people who test negative to quarantine camps because the police told them there were too many positive cases in their compound. The virus-negative group were sent to a quarantine site containing hundreds of single-room prefab cabins in neighboring Anhui province, 250 miles away. According to AFP, this has happened in multiple housing compounds. People who don't have COVID are being moved to other provinces. That's brilliant. If there aren't any people in Shanghai, then there's no COVID in Shanghai. Thanks, CCP. And now it's time for me to answer a question from a member of the China Uncensored 50 Cent Army, a fan who supports the show on our crowdfunding website Patreon or our exclusive social media community on Locals. Big Lake asks on Locals, are lockdowns political, or is there really a medical emergency in China? Well, Big Lake, lockdowns are absolutely political. From the beginning of the pandemic, it's been political for the Chinese Communist Party. It's been using the pandemic to push its own propaganda about how the Communist Party is handling COVID better than any other country in the world, and especially better than America. They put a lot of their political legitimacy on the line, and the zero COVID policy comes from Chinese leader Xi Jinping himself. Because Xi is trying to cement his rule over the party this year, he can't admit any weaknesses. And he can't afford a large COVID outbreak in China, even if it's the milder Omicron variant. His political rivals in the Jiang Zemin faction would use it to take him down. So the Chinese regime is not going to stop the lockdowns. And it's going to use its propaganda to convince people that China's lockdowns are for the best. Like this article about how China's dynamic zero COVID policy benefits the world. Yes, China is sparing no efforts in safeguarding people's lives and well-being by locking people up in their apartments without enough food or in quarantine camps with used blankets. A lot of people fell for this propaganda back in 2020, but I don't think they're going to fall for it this time. But what do I know? I'm just a hostile foreign force. Thanks for your question, Big Lake, and for becoming a member of the China Uncensored community on Locals. If you haven't joined us on Locals yet, come check it out for the exclusive content, like live streams, and perks like me answering your questions at the end of each episode. Learn more at ChinaUncensored.locals.com. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching this episode of China Uncensored.